Is Boeing making defective planes? And is everyone that gets on them in danger? That's coming up on Business Matters. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I'm Don Ma. So before we get to markets here, what we do on Business Matters here is we condense everything for you that you need to know for the day in the business and finance world in about 20 or so minutes. And after watching our show, you'll be completely up to date on virtually everything that happened on any given day. So that's what we do here. Now on to markets. Today's trading was a bit choppy. Stocks fell at market close. This is, of course, as many investors are analyzing the Federal Reserve's interest rate stance. At the same time, we also got a batch of soft earnings, and we're very early off in the earnings season. S&P 500 registered its fourth straight session of declines here. The market's right now a lot on their plates. For example, inflation, hotter than most expected. Rate cuts expectations are coming down as well, and we've had a ramp in higher geopolitical tensions. So, markets potentially now are kind of taking a breather after a really, really strong 5-month gains. All right, so we got scathing testimony today, and it was delivered by Boeing whistleblowers. They say Boeing effectively produces defective planes, and everyone who gets into one is at risk. NTD's Virginia Gibson breaks us down the hearings today.
Every person stepping aboard a Boeing airplane is at risk.
Boeing whistleblowers give scathing testimony on Boeing's safety culture. Engineer Sam Salahpour says it's effectively putting out defective airplanes.
The company's taken manufacturing shortcuts on the 787 program that may significantly reduce the airplane safety. Serious issues on the 787 program, not properly closing thousands of gaps in its assembly of the fuselage on major joints.
A culture of retaliation prevents workers like him from reporting these problems. His boss even suggested he'd kill someone who said what Salahpour said about plane quality. In another instance, he found a nail stuck into the tire of his car.
It really scares me, believe me, but I am at peace. If something happens to me, I am at peace because I feel like by coming forward, I will be saving a lot of lives, and I'm at peace. Whatever happens, it happens.
Whistleblowers assert that Boeing prioritizes profits over safety. This comes after the door blew off of a Boeing plane mid-flight earlier this year and various other incidents.
Engine anti-ice, exhaust duct fasteners, compromised seal and adhesion within the center fuel tank, loose bolts in the rudder assembly, stuck rudder pedals, misinstalled electrical wire bundles in the wing spoilers, and then, of course, the door blowout.
Former FAA engineer Joe Jacobson saw serious flaws with Boeing's planes. He observed Boeing hiding these flaws from government agencies. Former Boeing manager Ed Pearson says even the government agencies have done a poor job.
These agencies have become lazy, complacent, and reactive. The deterioration has been occurring over several years.
Pearson says the National Transportation Safety Board, the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Department of Transportation all ignored Boeing's problems, even after multiple high-profile crashes.
If the leaders of those government agencies had done their jobs, investigators would have uncovered a mountain of important information. The FAA would have known Boeing's production processes were a mess.
The whistleblowers want to change Boeing's entire production system, one that encourages people to raise issues and prioritize safety over profits. Virginia Gibson, NTD News.
What's happening with Boeing here is having ripple effects throughout the airline industry. So United Airlines says it's feeling the impact of the company's problems. The carrier says that it lost $200 million during the first 3 months of the year after Boeing was forced to ground its 737 MAX 9 jets for weeks. Now, United depends on Boeing planes for about 80% of its mainline fleet. United says its first quarter actually would have turned a profit if not for the fact of the grounding. Now, despite the hit from Boeing, United stock is up actually 17% today, and this is because it was driven by an upbeat profit forecast for the second quarter. The company expects strong summer travel demand across its network to help set another record for passenger numbers. So, since we're talking airlines, I might as well mention this to you guys. Alaska Airlines flights back in the air after all flights were grounded nationwide. The airline said that it experienced an issue with its system that calculates weight and balance. This morning, the FAA says that Alaska requested a pause on all its departures, and the issues were resolved in an hour, and the ground stop was canceled. Alaska Airlines warned customers to expect delays, though, for the rest of the day. It also apologized for the inconvenience. Besides going one of the biggest stories today, President Joe Biden is putting the pressure on Chinese metal in a campaign stop in the steel city of Pittsburgh. He called for triple the tariffs on steel and metal products, including, as I mentioned, steel and aluminum. Let's have a listen here.
Look, right now, my U.S. Trade Representative is investigating trade practices by the Chinese government regarding steel and aluminum. If that investigation confirms these anti-competitive trade practices, then I'm calling on her to consider tripling the tariff rates for both steel imports and aluminum imports from China.
Biden wants to raise tariffs to 25%. By comparison, the current tariffs are sitting at 7.5%. So they were imposed by former President Donald Trump. Both have been trying to win votes from unions and blue-collar industries. The new tariff hike could invite blowback from China. The Biden administration assures that the tariffs are necessary for national security to protect one of our most critical sectors. So on top of the tariffs, it's working to prevent China from flooding the market with cheap imports or skirting tariffs by importing through Mexico. The White House is trying to assure Americans that the tariff hike won't worsen inflation. But, if metal prices do go up, it could increase costs for cars, construction, and materials, and more. So to get another perspective on Biden's latest action, I spoke to Hudson Institute senior fellow Riley Waters. So here's how he feels about the tariffs. Riley, great to have you here today. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Biden thinking of raising tariffs on Chinese steel products and aluminum as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it seems very political, considering we import so little steel from China. The usage of Chinese steel in the United States is not even 1%. And so he could call for a tripling, he could call for a quadrupling. We can increase it by 10 times. It's not really going to matter that much at the end of the day because we use so little. So it really does seem like it's not going to have that much of an effect, other than the consideration that, of course, the U.S. election is later this year. I think this is really an effort to draw in union support ahead of November.
So, of course, where Biden is coming from with this, and he has mentioned this, is to protect the American steel industry. Will this better the industry? You mentioned that we don't even import that much steel from China.
Yeah, it really is a question of efficacy here. I don't think it really will have a meaningful effect on U.S. production or usage of steel, which means it's really not going to have any effect on the workers themselves. If we're looking at all steel industry right now, the mentioning of the Nippon Steel deal is actually, I think, quite important to consider, because Nippon Steel acquisition of U.S. Steel could actually support U.S. labor, but Biden, of course, continues to come out in opposition of that. For whatever reason, he feels that some of these archaic views on trade and investment will somehow support U.S. industry, when I think history has gone to show the latter. It's not really true anymore. It's really more protectionist than anything at this point.
We've seen Trump do something similar, and there was a lot of talk about a trade war between China and the U.S. How is this move by Biden going to impact U.S. trade relations?
That's actually a really great question. There's a couple things to consider. If we're talking about shipbuilding in the petition that USTR will investigate, it seems very narrow or potentially very narrow, so it may not escalate into the broad trade war that we saw in the 2018s and 2019s. But when Biden called for a tripling of steel tariffs in respect to the past 2018-2019 investigation, all very legalese here, that could potentially expand on that. We do have many tariffs on Chinese imports still in place, and the Chinese have very many tariffs on U.S. imports. And so while it's very narrow, and so I think not really risking an escalation at this point, it does, I think, feed into that conversation. How much longer are we going to continue this back and forth? How long are we going to continue to impose new tariffs without actually finding solutions? Because we do have a trade agreement with China in place. They haven't fully committed to it. And so we could continue to see this escalation, especially if administration changes. It could definitely continue to go further, unless, for example, Congress were to step in at some point and say, we want to put limits on what USTR can do and what the White House can do in this matter.
Okay, maybe just one more thing. What do you think is going to be the response from Beijing after this?
Well, the response in the past, if we're looking at the trade war, was very proportionate. And so whatever the United States determines, because that's the point, they still have to do an investigation. They still have to determine how far they're going to go with tariffs. I could expect to see a measured response, reciprocal, maybe not necessarily on similar industries like we saw, but like we saw in the trade war, they did increase tariffs up to a certain amount of annual imports, targeting things like agricultural products. Those tend to be very popular, and some other goods that China imports from the United States.
All right, Riley Walters, Hudson Institute, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the things that we frequently talk about here on Business Matters is the EV market. And sales of electric vehicles may have hit a speed bump here. Kelley Blue Book reports nearly 270,000 EV sales in the US during the first 3 months of the year. It's nearly 7.5% less, though, compared to the final quarter of last year. And Tesla has been especially hit hard. The company's sales fell more than 13% during the first quarter of the year compared to a year ago. And its stock price has dropped more than 30% this year. Tesla is getting more competition as well in the EV market from companies like Ford, Hyundai, Mercedes-Benz, and BMW. So sticking with Tesla here, the company is also putting a multi-billion-dollar payday for Elon Musk in the hands of its shareholders. Its electric vehicle, the maker will be asking its shareholders to approve a 2018 pay package that was thrown out by a judge in Delaware. And Musk is not paid a straight salary, by the way. Instead, he only receives stock options based on Tesla reaching financial milestones. The package currently is worth tens of billions of dollars, and the Delaware judge had said that Musk and Tesla had failed to prove the compensation plan was fair. Shareholders are expected to vote on the package at their annual meeting on June 13th. And Tesla is also going to be asking shareholders to approve moving its incorporation to Texas. Just one more thing before we head on to break. Fear from recent bank collapses has U.S. regional banks stockpiling more cash, it appears. Banks are saving the money to prepare for potential losses from commercial real estate and to sell more property loans. So the top concern here is multifamily properties with more than 5 units, especially in big cities like New York and San Francisco, where rent hikes were limited based on record low interest rates and inflation at the time, that is. Office loans have also been another hit for banks. Owners have struggled to pay mortgages post-pandemic with increased remote work. All right, taking a short break now, but when we come back, we explore what exactly would happen to the U.S. economy if the Federal Reserve does not lower interest rates, and it's not good for your wallet. Luxury super yacht sales have had some pitfalls recently due to economic woes and sanctioned Russian oligarchs. Find out why and what's been bouncing them back after the break.
How'd it happen?
She showed up dead on arrival.
This never gets easier.
It does when you call CarShield before your car breaks down. Look at these prices. The camshaft, transmission, engine.
Don't people know? A plan through CarShield could protect up to 5,000 parts and systems.
You hate to see it.
An out-of-warranty car is gonna break down eventually.
Right, which is why they need a plan through CarShield. Those expensive repair bills get paid and at the mechanic of their choice. They're notifying the family.
Poor guy, he doesn't even know what's coming.
Another victim of senselessly expensive repair bills. Can't save them all.
But we can keep trying. Didn't have to end this way. If he'd have just called CarShield before his car broke down.
Exactly.
Protect yourself from the unprecedented rise in cost for parts and repairs. Call now to save money with your price lock guarantee. Call 800-429-5128.
Some things are better left to a professional.
In hindsight, probably shouldn't have tried to remove my own appendix.
Like when it comes to finding financial advisors.
What was I thinking?
So leave it to Smart Asset to find them for you. Take the free quiz at smartasset.com. Then you'll be matched with up to 3 vetted fiduciary financial advisors. To get started, take the Advisor Match quiz now at smartasset.com.
I was this close. This close.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
Got a new house.
Place that I call home.
All right, welcome back. Just some rapid fire headlines to keep you up to date for today's stories. The founder of the Telegram messaging app says monthly users will likely surpass the 1 billion mark within a year. The founder says his encrypted messaging app is spreading like a, quote, forest fire. And this year, Amazon plans to push its cashierless shopping technology into more third-party stores. And at the same time, the tech giant has reduced its own use of the system, which is known as Just Walk Out. And Morgan Stanley and HSBC are cutting dozens of investment banking jobs in the Asia-Pacific region this week, according to sources. This is amid sluggish markets in China and Hong Kong weighing on business. Now, a few more Chinese-related stories today. Chinese firms are being hit with huge challenges to fundraise through IPOs. China's securities watchdog has tightened scrutiny of IPOs this year. This makes it increasingly difficult for small companies, especially tech startups, to raise capital. Data reveals that monthly raised money through China's IPO plunged more than 80% in the first quarter. So far this year, more than 80 IPOs candidates in China have scrapped plans to list. About 36 companies have applied to list overseas. The majority are eyeing Hong Kong's market, and a couple are actually aiming for a US listing. Japanese companies increasingly pivoting away from China and towards the US. So Tokyo is among the G7 members who have pledged to de-risk but not decouple its relations with China. So let me explain here. Some of the caution toward China comes from economic security risks, and others are concerned about China's weakened economy. A survey showed that almost half of Japanese companies operating in China chose not to invest or actually reduced their investment there last year. Another survey revealed companies looking to expand in North America rose above 50%. But despite the pivot, Japan still relies on China to some capacity. For example, China is Japan's largest source of imports. And moving on to Russia, super yacht sales have taken a nosedive, and soaring costs, extremely long wait times, and less buys from Russian oligarchs. That's what's happening here. NTD Sean Marshall has more.
Super yacht sales took a plunge in 2023. High net worth consumers were facing waiting lines of up to 3 to 4 years after pandemic economy problems. Prices are also up due to rising material costs and labor. Yacht completions have been on the rise, though, while sales were declining. That data represents the big increase of yacht build orders during the pandemic that are just now being launched. And Americans have been helping the yacht market quite a bit, accounting for nearly a quarter of all super yacht sales last year.
Really, what is still powering the market is the American market. I mean, the US economy continues to defy all expectations. And if you then figure in that all this wealth is concentrated in terms of yachting in the south of Florida, and Florida has really been going through the roof. That's really the cork that sort of the global industry floats on, even, I could kind of say.
Dazzert said a mix of American Middle Easterners and some Asians make a decent mix for yacht sales. But a number of boats bought, it doesn't replace the Russians.
Russians were responsible for quite a few of these really extravagant yachts, well over 100 meters. And we saw sales of those drop off quite a bit after the hostilities started in Ukraine 2 years ago.
Even with the lack of rich Russians, the industry is on the rebound.
There's been somewhat of an order drought on the top end of the market last year. And now it's really buzzing with projects. So I think we will see a bit of a rebound. So everybody, buyers and sort of the shipyards that are selling and the buyers are starting to get a bit closer to each other again. So I think we'll see a bit of an upswing of the market this year in that segment.
The demand for super yachts has been growing for quite some time, as there are now almost 6,000 super yachts, triple the number in 2002, according to Super Yacht Times. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
So we know many Americans might like to move, but right now they're essentially stuck in their homes and unable to upgrade, downsize, or relocate for new jobs or better pay, all because existing mortgage rates is too low to give up. The average is about 4%, while today mortgage rates for new home loans far surpass that, holding steady at about 7%. So this has paralyzed homeowners and created a nationwide lock-in effect for the housing market. And according to Federal Housing Finance Agency, it's responsible for about 1.3 million fewer home sales in the U.S. from the spring of 2022 through the end of last year. And if you were hoping interest rates would be coming down soon, maybe you could be out of luck. And that's what Fed Chair Jerome Powell indicated while speaking at the Wilson Center yesterday. So what does that mean for the economy and borrowers, right? So let's break it down here in our next story.
It appears interest rates won't be coming down anytime soon. For months, Federal Reserve officials have said they need convincing data showing inflation is coming down before feeling comfortable cutting interest rates.
We'll need greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2% before it would be appropriate to ease policy.
But inflation isn't near 2%. According to the latest data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released last week, the Consumer Price Index rose 3.5% in the last year. The report also shows prices for a variety of categories have gone up in the last 12 months. Everything from car insurance to baby food to rent.
The recent data have clearly not given us greater confidence and instead indicate that it's likely to take longer than expected to achieve that confidence.
Mortgage rates continue to rise as well. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate jumped to 6.88% in the week ending April 11th, up from 6.82% the previous week, according to Freddie Mac. All of that means higher costs for households. When it's more expensive to borrow, experts say consumers have less money to pour into the economy.
And finally, drug maker Eli Lilly says its popular weight loss drug Zepbound may help people sleep with apnea. This condition causes people to briefly stop breathing while they are sleeping. In clinical trials, the company found people who used Zepbound had fewer breathing events while sleeping than participants who got the placebo. Those who took the drug also lost weight. Eli Lilly is still evaluating the results, which have not been peer-reviewed just yet, but says it is planning to submit them to the Food and Drug Administration to potentially expand its use. And thank you very much for watching today. That's all the stories we have for you. If you have any feedback for the episode, feel free to let me know. And don't forget, as always, business matters.